Hi, everyone, and welcome to kind of a new kind of segment we're doing where we kind of interview IAPSS team members and just to get some information about their experiences and stuff. I'm Justin Patrick, IAPSS President, and I'm here with Oleksii Zahreba, IAPSS USA and Canada Chair. So how's everything going today, Oleksii?
Going pretty well, thank you, Justin.
All right, well, that's great to hear. So I guess to start off, would you maybe be able to tell us some information about yourself, maybe your academic background, maybe the history of your involvement in IAPSS, and anything else you'd like to share with us here?
Absolutely. Well, I'm based in Canada, in the province of Alberta. I'm originally from Ukraine. I've been living here for more than 5 years now. Studying at the Burman University, a small university located between two major cities in Alberta, Calgary and Edmonton. I'm studying in the International Studies program with focus on political science, government, and world cultures. Currently in my third year. I have been involved in IAPSS for just about a year. A year ago, I applied for a position in the World Congress team. World Congress 2020 was supposed to happen in Vienna and gather all IAPSS members from around the world. And I applied for a speakers coordinator position. And it was a lot of fun. It was a great experience. Got connected with people from different countries, and it was a great team overall. Then pandemic happened, had to unfortunately cancel the World Congress, and then the opportunity came along to develop this region, United States and Canada, which has a lot of potential, but unfortunately didn't have too many human resources at this point. But up to this point, and I live here, and I saw that I can help IAPSS develop its presence here. And I think political science students in this region deserve much more in terms of opportunities and just general connections. And political science students deserve to have a community. And so that's why I took responsibility to be leading this region.
All right. Well, I guess it's important for viewers to know that your position is an elected one, right? So you're kind of elected
Correct.
by political science students in the USA and Canada to kind of represent their interests, I guess, as we do lots of advocacy at the international level and things like that. And I, being from Canada myself, I can definitely relate to the fact that political science students, in Canada and the US really need more opportunities to make their voices heard at the international level, especially, right? Because I know there isn't necessarily a lot of, engagement at that kind of level. It's more kind of localized. And, in the US especially, we saw the collapse of, the United States Student Association a few years ago, which is kind of greatly hindered students' ability down there to, make their voice heard, like on kind of unite on a national level, right? And they have student movements and stuff, but without that democratic student government, it's a bit, it's a bit more of a challenge, right? It's not as reliable. It's kind of sporadic. But with this being said, how has your term as IAPSS USA and Canada chair been so far, right? And are there any particular accomplishments that you're proud of that you maybe like to highlight?
The term has been going for 5 months now, and I think starting from scratch, a lot has been accomplished, but still so much work is ahead. The more I work every day, the more I realize how much still more work is ahead to make this region successful and prosperous within IAPSS. I'm happy that I could hire amazing team members. We have people in charge of liaison, people in charge of events, media, and we are always looking for more awesome students who are willing to contribute their time to the development of political science community in US and Canada. So one accomplishment is building a team and building a long-term plan for 2020-2021 term, a long-term vision for a region. We have signed partnership agreements with various non-governmental organizations. We so far hosted at least one virtual event every month. We try to be consistent with our events and have something for political science students available at all times to attend, whether it's a lecture or a panel or United Nations 75 consultation hosted a couple of months ago. And we are just growing our social media following and trying to make spread awareness about this region. A lot of times political science students just don't know that there are more opportunities they're not aware of. They don't know that there's community that they can join. And so one of our goals is to make it known, make IAPSS household name in US and Canada within political science sphere, that when people mention IAPSS, it's like, oh, of course I know IAPSS. It's an amazing organization run by students and for students. But there's much more to be done. I'm looking to increase individual student membership, sign partnership agreements with universities and more non-governmental organizations, and host big conferences. Winter in the time of COVID, it might be more challenging, but we're looking to host a virtual conference on wine. And the moment we are sort of back to normal, we want to host something in person, and that would mark new beginnings for our region.
Yeah, and I guess another notable thing is that with the, kind of bringing the Canadian Political Science Association back, because it seemed to be having a bit of a rough time and helping with its sort of revival, right? Is there anything that you'd like to maybe share about that?
Yeah, we got in touch with President of Canadian Student Political Science Association, CPSSA, and the president, Patricia Kumbekisaka, now joined our team as a representative of CPSSA to IAPSS. Again, our focus is on students, so she will be helping to develop her association, first of all, revive it. And we're happy to support them in any way possible. We created a webpage on IAPSS website for CPSSA describing who they are, and Patricia will be working connecting with Canadian universities and Canadian students, and making IAPSS and making CPSSA known in Canada. And we will be, meanwhile, the rest of our team will be focusing on the United States. And the collaboration helps to achieve big goals when many people work together. And so I hope that having many people in different directions, different geographical areas, helps us to be more widespread and known across the continent. So yeah, definitely bringing CPSSA back to life is an achievement that will be it's a foundation of big things.
Absolutely. So with this being said, we're our mandate started on June 1st, so we're almost at the halfway point, not quite, but at this kind of point, what are your plans for the rest of the mandate, and is there anything you would like viewers kind of watching this to be aware of, whether it's kind of upcoming events and things or other projects that you're working on?
We are launching a massive campaign to bring IAPSS to as many campuses as possible. If you are watching this and you're a university student, you can contact us through the online form on our regional page. Just go to IAPSS.org, find regions, US and Canada, and partner with us. You can fill out a form and bring IAPSS to your university. We will contact you and schedule an online info session for university club. Maybe have a political science club, maybe have a political science association, and you want to connect your students with us, or maybe you're presenting student union. We're happy to partner with you as well. And we'll be trying to reach out to as many campuses as possible and present them with opportunities and partnership agreements, and really develop meaningful relationships with political science departments in both countries. But the core of the idea is to make apps as much available, as much available as it's possible for students. So every political science students would know about existence of IAPSS, and it wouldn't be difficult for them to join. It should be affordable and it should be easy. So that's one of our goals is to make IAPSS accessible. We are also planning to continue hosting events, at least one event a month. So follow our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter accounts to stay up to date. And there are more interesting projects, on our mind. So just make sure to follow our pages and see what will be happening very soon.
All right, well, that's great to hear. So that kind of leads us into our next question, which is a bit more conceptual. So, what is your vision for the future of IAPSS, right? Are there any, I guess, what would, this could be long-term goals, right? Maybe things that that you'd hope to see after, for future generations of IAPSS students and student representatives. So I guess the sky's the limit on this question here.
Definitely, but don't tell me sky's the limit when there's footprints on the moon. There's so much more that IAPSS can do, because first of all, IAPSS is the only organization, democratic student government representing political science students at the global level, recognized by the United Nations. So the potential is truly unlimited. I see IAPSS as it's not organization run by somewhere in ivory towers, just pretending to be for students. No, it is run by students. This is why I'm here. This is why IAPSS makes it possible to get involved in various roles in research or student leadership or student activism. And so I see that IAPSS is not just it's not a business that sells tickets to conferences or organizes trips. It's not just a publisher. It's much more than that. It's community, and community it's a group of people who support each other and who help each other, maybe career-wise, academically, personally. It's a community of friendship, a community of friends from around the world. IAPSS opens multiple opportunities for international collaboration. So ultimately, we want to create a global political science community. What it means to be, what it means not just to be a company, but to be a community where anyone can get involved, anyone can get help, anyone can raise their voice, raise attention to the issues they care about, and do it through IAPSS and do it through IAPSS wide platform, because IAPSS is represented on all inhabited continents. So there's a big reach, hundreds of thousands of students who follow IAPSS, and you can raise a voice to the issues that matter to you. And this is an ongoing process. There's no end goal we can achieve. We'll never achieve it, but the goal is to maintain IAPSS, keep it going and expand it, and help students to become who they want to become, political science students especially, whether they want to work for the government and make a change on that level, or they want to work in nonprofit area, work for the United Nations, work for small nonprofits, and really get involved in the field, on the ground, and be there and help people. Or maybe someone wants to become a politician, a lawmaker, researcher, scholar. IAPSS is a great foundation. It's a great springboard for students to start up their career, start up their search for connections for people. And this is, I think, IAPSS mission that keeps me going every day.
Yeah, those are I agree, right? It's definitely a lot of potential, right? And as we I wonder if even a few years ago, right, I know with the creation of the continental IAPSS regions, right, if the student leaders then could kind of foresee what they might become today, right? And I'm sure they would be very proud anyway. But so this kind of brings us to what I guess another segment here in terms of a new initiative that we're doing in collaboration with other student governments around the world. So largely in response to what we've observed in a number of countries where student representation appears to be in retrenchment, right? We see instances where, in countries like Pakistan and Afghanistan, students from there have told us that student unions are outright banned. And also, we mentioned the collapse of the United States Student Association a few years ago. And then, countries like, India and Canada, we have multiple student unions who kind of compete for control instead of one sort of unified national student government to sort of provide that kind of one voice of students to really affect policy change and stuff. So we've been working with a number of other organizations like ours to try to form a global student government, right, to represent all students and help kind of fill the void left by the collapse of the International Union of Students about 20 years ago, right, which it was created after World War II, but I think based on the documents that we've been able to find, the major causes of its downfall appear to be kind of a lack of, a funding model that sort of worked, and as well as a lack of grassroots student engagement, right? Which, without that, without the students, right, it's difficult for a student government to be, legitimate. So, I know you're kind of very interested in this initiative and you've been involved with it so far. And so I guess, what are your thoughts on this, right?
I think global student government is exactly what students need at this time. It's interesting how we live, in the current world, and we as youth, we just follow, the news around us. We follow the national news, global news, and we're told it's a time of uncertainty. It's unprecedented times, and it's not just COVID. Even before COVID, the world liberal international order was being challenged, and it is being challenged right now. The post World War II order, characterized by international cooperation and leadership in the United States, is being eroded. And what we see is fragmentation and deglobalization, and different regions of the world sort of start locking up and becoming more, not to say independent, but and more like self-sufficient, because not many, again, time of uncertainty, you cannot make big plans for the future when you don't know what happens next year. What kind of decisions other states will make. So, but that influences student politics. We can see how it just reflects, in various student governments around the world. As you mentioned, some stopped existing altogether. So there's a lot of student unions within one country that compete with each other. And I think the big problem is lack of definitely grassroots engagement, starting from students, when students don't feel connected to the organization that represents them. This is the sort of beginning of a downfall of the organization. Now, the global student government, I think, is an amazing idea, and we have to do everything to make it work and to start it and develop it to big heights, because first of all, it should represent all students worldwide. It should represent as many student associations and unions as possible. It should be run by and for students. And as we search for student associations and unions who are willing to join the initiative, we want to make students the core of the organization. So whenever there's a decision being made, students should be the crucial part of decision making. So they can, it's not them some higher up office of a few people who make all the decisions. And no, it should be democratic. It should have different sort of institutions within the organization, sort of like General Assembly, or any kind of structure that would allow everyone to have a voice. So students I feel connected, and they are the ones who run it. So it should be democratic and representative. Officials, student government, global student government officials are elected by by their students, and we should make them outreach and advocacy the core organization. Because again, if there's a small group that runs the whole thing for many years, what happens is that small group starts promoting its own views, and forcing its views, first of all, on members' organization and just globally. This shouldn't happen. We should ensure comprehensive reach of all students, and we should include not only national, regional representation bodies, but also global organizations that represent students for a particular sector and field of study. So it's not, there's various associations around the world. There's just generic national student union of some country, but there is also union of student biologists, student union of students studying psychology, IAPSS political science. So we should include those thematic-based organizations as facets of global student government. So it's not, it's students represented from all fields of studies who can use global student government as a platform to advocate for their views on global issues in their fields. I think, the global student government is something the world needs at the moment. Again, the time of uncertainty and just general, everything is changing all the time. The disruptive technology, the unpredictable behavior of states, the national politics, which elect different leaders who totally change the course of the the global politics. It all influences students, and we should create something sort of stable, something that no matter what happens in the world, it stands firmly, and it promotes students' use, and it's not being influenced. It's not partisan. It's not being influenced by some political force, and it's run by the students who come and go. So the power should be sort of through democratic means. The executive committees, the elected officials should always be changing to ensure the variety of views being promoted. But we should also ensure that the core values of student governments, global student government, are always upheld throughout many years, as it will continue to expand and grow. So I'm very excited about the initiative, and I can't wait to see how far we'll advance with it.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's also, important, the student autonomy thing that you mentioned is kind of vital, right? Because I think, a lot of the problems facing student governments is, when, there's interference by, actors who aren't students, right? Or kind of not elected, right? So it's, and that ranges for everything from, high school student councils where, teachers, administrators, other education stakeholder groups sort of encroach on the student government, or, even larger student unions where they have barriers faced by kind of corporatization, right? So they're stuck within a corporate structure that could be, that might not necessitate democracy, right? It could, the bare minimum might be like an autocratic structure. So there's kind of not as many safeguards perhaps in place. But yeah, I think that, in terms of, I guess I had a meeting with a few months ago with kind of an NGO in the US, and I kind of mentioned this because I just wanted, because one of them was a former student leader from the United States Student Association, and they mentioned that, it's definitely a goal worth striving for, but it's a very challenging one, right? Because as you kind of mentioned, right, there's different types of student governments now. Just kind of in the wake of the International Union of Students, it collapsed, and now you have kind of student governments representing kind of a geographical area, whether that's a country or a continent or a series of countries, or you have ones like ours that kind of, in the ones you mentioned, that kind of represent subjects and stuff, right? So, it's definitely not going to be easy, because all those organizations also have different structures, ways of doing things, right? Some have very, codified kind of structural lists of individual members, while others are kind of less formal and might just be a collection of associations, right? Or some might be a bit of both. So, it's finding a way, I think it's important to find a way that we can make sure that regardless of all these differences, we can find something where it's funded by students, right? Because I know a lot of risks are, if it's funded by private interests, it could reflect those, it could be kind of beholding to those private interests, right? And then, those students, as we saw, like, in the 1960s, there were actually kind of two international student unions that kind of fought for control, like the IUS that we've mentioned, and also the International Student Conference. So one was, generally supported by the USSR and one by the US, and they competed for a bit in the 1960s, right? So it was, whether it's interference by governments, private interests, it's definitely dangerous. And then, with groups like the United States Student Association, we saw stuff where, they became kind of dependent on funding by, foundations and stuff. And then one year the foundations just decided to, donate their funds somewhere else. And then it kind of put that, so it kind of was a deciding factor in that association's capitulation eventually. But yeah, definitely a lot of progress to be made. And I know that, yeah, it's very difficult to kind of get all the different groups at the table who are currently around the world, right? Some have different ideas, some want to go in different directions, right? So it's kind of a delicate balance for sure.
This is why those global student organizations collapsed, which were founded by USSR or United States. Once the Cold War was over, there was no point in financing them anymore because they were used as tools for political gain. And this is what we must ensure should not happen with global student government. First of all, it shouldn't be used as the tool for political purposes. It shouldn't be used as a tool for corporations. It shouldn't be funded by private companies. And third, we have to ensure it does not slip into autocracy. It's funded by the students. It has, it's equal. All student organizations have one vote. We have advisory board consisting of experts who can advise the executive board on, in decision making. Should have member institutions that representing different fields. Financing expenses should be reduced to, daily expenses should be reduced to minimum for daily operations. So we ensure we stay afloat, and many more things to be taken care of. But think of it as the United Nations for students, but better, more effective, more influential, and not binded by politics. And this is a dream I think we might not achieve next year and year after that, but within this decade, as we continue working towards accomplishing sustainable development goals, Agenda 2030, and especially education, we see that there's a lot of progress being made, but I think our role is vital in achieving goal number 4, the sustainable development goal for education. And we should mobilize a global studentship to help achieve this goal. And I think it's totally doable. And I will do everything in my power and in my role currently as IAPSS US and Canada chair to ensure global student government succeeds.
Yeah, I know that, yeah, as you mentioned, it's, it might not come to fruition, but I think even as far as we've come, it still sets a new precedent that hasn't really been, I think, examined that in depth for, at least a couple decades, right? Because, I know there's been a bit of a resurgence in the kind of the late 2010s, but, between that fall of the IUS and early 2000s and then it's been a void, right? So it's, I think there's a lot more activity now that's, it's good that students are kind of communicating with each other, right? And I think it's more of, even if our initiative fails, I think it's still a question of when, perhaps, as opposed to if at this point. But with that comes challenges of, we have to make sure the structure that's established is, as you mentioned, like inclusive, right? Doesn't, exclude particular countries and stuff, but at the same time, has a structure that's kind of fair and democratic and, isn't, as you worded, I guess, doesn't slip into autocracy, right? Because that's, yeah, like, and I think a large part of that would be just making sure we have that grassroots activism, right? I think we've come a long way since the days of the IUS technologically, right? We have a lot more tools that we can use, like online voting. I think is one major thing that can allow us to kind of come together, right? We don't necessarily have to physically kind of go to conferences. We can do it virtually, right? That saves a lot of funds that students will be putting into the organization, right? And another thing too, like if we can, one day figure out, by it's a little bit idealistic, but the potential of having some form of direct elections, right? Or instead of the old model where you have students they elect the student government representatives of their school, who elect representatives of, maybe their country, and then who elect representatives of their continent, and then they would elect representatives of this global organization, right? It's a lot of tiers, and you know, the grassroots student just doesn't really know what's going on, right? And it's very difficult to kind of communicate that message, especially if their vote just doesn't directly go all the way up through the ticket, right? And now we have online voting, we could hypothetically organize that, right? And IAPSS, we've been experimenting with that where, students don't just vote for the global executive, they also vote for their continental chairs as well, right? And hopefully we'll be able to kind of keep expanding with that. And even with the Canadian Political Science Student Association, we can maybe add like a national level in that instance as well. I know that IAPSS Ukraine has also been very active and has their own sort of level. So I think there's lots of possibilities, but we just got to make sure it's not we don't kind of repeat the same mistakes, right? Especially given, like you said, the increased kind of self-sufficiency, kind of that with sort of retrenchment in terms of international cooperation that we should stave off as best we can. But yeah, definitely a long road ahead, but I think we're setting some new precedents either way.
We definitely do, and this work will not go in vain either way. I think it's setting definitely, as you're saying, it's setting a precedent. But I have a feeling it's going to take off ultimately, because as so far, we've had meetings and we had discussions. Students are at the core. It's not some decision of a higher body, some European Commission or United Nations agency that decide to set something up. And they do have infrastructure. They do have a lot of financial resources and human resources. But right now it starts from the grassroots. It starts with the students. It starts with people like you and me at IAPSS. It starts with students from other associations we've been in touch with. And I think that's how it should be. That's where it starts, and then it becomes bigger. But one thing to avoid is becoming too big and bureaucratic, that tangled in red tape and documents and procedures that it loses its original meaning. And also seeing how the world has changed in such a short time span this year, we definitely do see that you shift to online meetings and online conferences. But I do believe in the power of human relationships and in real world. And I hope we one day, as IAPSS returns to in-person events and everything, just generally we return to seeing each other in person. This is where the connections are made and deals are negotiated, and this is where I see for global student government is eventually meeting in person on various continents, and perhaps meeting on the global level, like World Congress, IAPSS World Congress. Even though it is a lot of money, it's a lot of effort, but it's in the end it's absolutely worth it. So there is a substitute with Zoom, but I don't feel like it's absolute future, even though it's very useful for day-to-day use. I hope that students through global student government will be getting also financial help to attend those events and participate in democratic procedures on, as it happens in real life and in time. It's amazing seeing sitting at General Assembly and voting and seeing that your vote matters, and you elect your representatives in real time. So yeah, I hope as the world adapts to living with COVID, releasing vaccines and just seeing progress being made, we'll return to be seeing each other and shaking hands and building relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I have a feeling like when everything kind of goes back to normal, it's just going to be like in-person events like all the time, right? Like a very big explosion of conferences and stuff, right? Like I'm imagining like best case scenario, like a 2022 World Congress that's just, gigantic, right? And has where we're all able to sort of meet and kind of talk about this kind of stuff, just like our predecessors have done, right? For, over 20 years now. So at the same time too, I think we're learning a lot of skills as an organization, like doing these online events where we can kind of maybe integrate those into the in-person ones, so we can kind of do both, so people who can't maybe afford to travel to the conferences in person can still kind of tune in virtually, right? And we can kind of have that simultaneous thing, or maybe kind of a situation where we can have multiple locations, right, in different countries perhaps, right? So that'll be easier on travel, and then kind of communicate through various virtual tools and stuff. So there's possibilities are endless, right? But making the best of a bad situation, right? At least we're kind of learning new ways to make sure that students kind of get our resources and opportunities and stuff. So as grim of things have been over the past year or so, I think we have a lot to look forward to for sure.
This is a chance, I think, right now as we are sitting in our homes and talking through Zoom and doing everything through Zoom and getting out once in a while. But this is a chance to regroup our efforts. And I think right now, if there was a best moment to create a global student government, it is now, when we're locked up and we have to sit and think, and we can't do many activities. This is a time to connect with organizations, and this is a time to start building it. So by the time the world is open, we are ready, and this time should be used productively. And I think this is our goal as IAPSS, is to change the direction, change the ways we do things, perhaps see where our work processes or our procedures have not been as reliable, improve. And once the world is back from the pause button, we are stronger than we were before.
Yeah, that's I think that's a good place to kind of segue into our conclusion. I think those are good words to maybe leave students on as they think about the future and stuff, and definitely gives them a lot of hope here. And with this, is there anything you would like to say to viewers, IAPSS members, other students who might be watching about whether it's stuff that IAPSS USA and Canada is doing, or other kind of ideas, or maybe some other words of encouragement and hope to leave them with? The floor is yours.
To everyone who made it that far, I don't know, I think we're half an hour through the interview, but everyone who made it that far, please keep the faith. It's not, I was watching Justin Trudeau making an assessment of global pandemic. He said it really sucks, but we have to make it through it. And we are here to support you. IAPSS USA and Canada has multiple initiatives. Just check out our regional pages, or the regional page, or check out our Facebook, Instagram. You can always send us personal message. I'm actually probably going to be like the one responding it, or a media coordinator. Please do get in touch with us. We'll be launching a newsletter soon with there's monthly opportunities. Sitting in isolation is difficult. Being isolated from human interaction, being isolated from different activities we're used to doing, it's hard. And everybody is collectively struggling through it, but we can improve it. And for me, I still go to work and I still attend school, but it's a bit, it's a combination of in-person and virtual. But most of the time I just have to study and can't do much in current circumstances. But when I do meet with people within IAPSS, when we have meetings from regional, with other regional chairs from around the world, Australia, Asia, Europe, Latin America is joining. This is such a big inspiration that I'm not alone in this, and we're working together. And it's when we organize events and we just sit down and we listen to people from Turkey, listen to people from the Middle East talking about their experiences. Yes, it is virtual, but it is connecting us. And right now, if you're a political science student, even if you're just a student interested in political science, and you are struggling, you don't know what to do next, you don't know what's your future after school, how you will apply your degree, please come to us. We're building a community. We want to support each other, and we are available. And if you join us now, I think this is it's definitely the best decision for any political science student to make is to join IAPSS and see where it takes you, because IAPSS can give you a match if you're willing to take it. So I'm looking forward to completing the next half a year, half of my mandate, and by the time the next June 1st rolls around, IAPSS USA and Canada is filled with motivated and ambitious people who want to take this region even further. And my dream is that we build a family of political science students who support each other and who are friends with each other, and do everything together wherever they live, or do everything together remotely, but still helping and still being involved on an international scale as much as possible. So if you are, again, this is a time to join IAPSS, and everything will be okay. We'll make it through it. We'll make it through it.
Yeah, and I echo those words. I think that's a great way to leave it off here. And for those watching, if you're a political science student and you're not part of IAPSS yet, I definitely encourage you to go to IAPSS.org and become a member, or usually your school would be a part of IAPSS, but if not, I would definitely encourage you to go to your local political science student association and see if they can get involved in IAPSS if they're not already, and they might have some other information for you. And also, if you're interested, on our website, you can find the information about, Oleksii and the IAPSS USA and Canada team if you'd like to reach out and get involved. So we also always have lots of opportunities on our Get Involved page, as we're, rapidly expanding, I think, quite a bit for the last few years. So there's always ways to help out and kind of be a part of it. So I'd like to kind of thank Oleksii for, being here on kind of the first kind of interview here with IAPSS team members, and we'll hopefully have some more for you in the future this year, and hopefully we can kind of start a trend and kind of provide you with a sort of perspective into what it's like to kind of volunteer and kind of work with IAPSS and stuff, and kind of be a part of it, right? So you can see how different aspects of our organization operate. And as Oleksii mentioned, I think there's a lot of good things to look forward to here, and there's definitely a lot of hope. So yeah, and if you're ever interested in kind of things like the Global Student Government Initiative or other kind of things like events coming up that we've kind of talked about, you're welcome to contact us anytime. So yeah, thank you so much for tuning in here and watching this, whether it's in 2020 or sometime in the future when you're kind of looking at what was it like in the pandemic for student organizations. Well, we're great to have you here. So take care. Thanks again, Oleksii, and have a great rest of your day.
You too, Justin. Please stay safe.
You too.